In July 2025, Jetstar Asia ceased operations in Singapore.
Jetstar Asia was losing more money than it had invested.
The closure comes as a surprise when demand is sky high for air travel in Southeast Asia and beyond.
The whole world after COVID went into revenge travel. They wanted to see again their relatives, their friends.
The global demand is still very positive for the growth in air travel, and that drives the number of aircraft.
But lingering challenges threaten to stall growth.
Spare part di pasar juga menipis karena tadi produksinya terhambat. Jadi disitulah, makanya banyak pesawat yang akhirnya grounded, menunggu spare part.
Supply chain issues also create backlog of new aircraft delivery.
Having just taken off after the COVID-19 pandemic, is Asia's aviation industry already facing strong headwinds? Here at Indonesia's oldest flying school, Salsabila Pramudita hopes her dreams will take flight. She's in her third year of training at the state-run Indonesia Aviation Polytechnic. This morning, she's preparing for another flight with her instructor.
Ini lagi ngecek bagian pesawat biar semuanya skrunya kencang terus tidak ada yang kurang.
If all goes well, she will complete her 4-year course in 2026. Another step towards her goal of becoming a commercial pilot.
Kalau misal nervous mungkin masih ada, cuma karena udah lumayan sering, jadi sekarang udah lebih bawaannya lebih senang gitu.
The training flight will take over an hour, flying over Tangerang in West Java, where the flying school is located.
Kita sering menemui kondisi cuaca yang kurang bagus, sehingga kalau misal kita tiba-tiba di atas hujan, tiba-tiba langitnya gelap, awannya sedang banyak dan tebal, kita harus punya desisi untuk melanjutkan penerbangan tersebut atau kita balik ke bandara asal.
Salsabila is 21 years old and the only female cadet in her batch. When she graduates, she will be entering an industry that's booming.
Untuk potensinya, kalau saya baca-baca juga, banyak juga kok kayak sekarang maskapai-maskapai yang butuh pilot-pilot. Lalu ada maskapai-maskapai baru, armada-armada baru.
Across Asia, air travel is surging as tourism has expanded year on year since the pandemic. Indonesia is the world's second fastest growing aviation market after China. Asia Pacific accounts for around 34% of global air passenger market. During the first 7 months of 2025, Asian Airlines carried 224 million international passengers, up 11% from the same period in 2024. Revenue passenger kilometers, or RPK, which measures air passenger traffic, rose by 8%.
Southeast Asia is an incredibly important, dynamic, fast-growing region with a population of over 700 million people, strong demographics, high growth economies, and actually low penetration of discretionary air travel. It's fantastic potential in Southeast Asia for aviation and aerospace.
Yet, there's a conundrum. Despite the boom in air travel, some Asian airlines are struggling. In July, Jetstar, a low-cost carrier, ceased operations more than 2 decades after its maiden flight in December 2004. Its parent company, Australian flag carrier Qantas, cited rising costs and stiff competition in the region.
The competition is really brutal in our part of the world. There's so many LCCs out here, and it's very hard to earn $1, if you like, in every single seat that you fly.
Many Asian airlines are facing tough times, from low-cost carriers or LCCs to full-service airlines. Why, despite the travel boom, are Asian carriers facing headwinds? For one, profit margins are tiny.
It's a competitive market, and that means if your costs are too high, then your margins are low.
Asia Pacific net profit for 2024 was 1.9%, under 2%. Under 2% is nothing, So it is a very low margin, Even considering the global margins for airlines, Asia Pacific Airlines are struggling.
One thing that's driving up costs is supply chain issues, which are still suffering from a post-pandemic lag.
This all began during COVID because many of the aircraft were grounded. And so when we came out of COVID, many of the aircraft that were grounded took a bit of time to come out and to be inspected and to fly. And at the same time also the supply chain was held up quite significantly.
Many airlines now face long wait times for replacement parts for their planes.
Components are not readily available, and you send engines for overhaul. It takes longer time for it to come back.
There's a lag, but then nobody expected the demand from air travel, from travelers to pick up so quickly, so intensely. And so they were caught off guard actually by the number of people in 2022, for example, when the lockdown was completely gone and we started flying again.
Airlines do not reveal the number of grounded aircraft, but in Indonesia, aviation sources say that as of July, 209 out of 583 commercial planes are grounded because of maintenance, awaiting spare parts.
Memang kalau saat ini, supply chain yang paling terganggu adalah engine, Pak. Karena bukan cuma supply chain, slot untuk perawatannya di beberapa MRO juga terbatas. Antri, udah antri slot, antri material.
Aside from parts, there's also a huge backlog for new planes. The International Air Transport Association, or IATA, says the backlog in aircraft deliveries implies a waiting time of 14 years.
Today, I believe backlog for the industry by OEMs, Airbus and Boeing, is about 17,000 aeroplanes, and it is forecasted by 2043 the industry globally, about 44,000 aircraft will be ordered to be delivered to replace all aging airplanes. Late deliveries of an airplane is driven due to supply chain issues.
By far, the two largest aircraft manufacturers are Airbus and Boeing. Airbus has about a 56% share of the plane-making market. It currently has a backlog of around 8,700 aircraft on order, equivalent to about 10 years of production at current levels.
Even this year, we are looking at about 820 deliveries, which we are on track for, and we've already crossed over 300 deliveries. So we are committed to ensuring we can supply our backlog. We are ramping up towards that so that we can meet our customer demand and in turn also drive the GDP growth in these regions.
Boeing, with about 40% of the market, has a current backlog of around 5,950.
I think year to date, Boeing has had over 650 new orders. But when we talk about backlog, that is actually a demonstration of the demand for future aircraft. So not a negative thing, actually a very positive driver.
Without new planes, Asian fleets are aging. Old planes cost more to maintain and use more fuel. It also reduces the efficiency of fleet utilization because they may be using larger aircraft than needed on some routes.
Issues of supply chain will not be resolved overnight. It takes 2-3 years from now, right? And supply chain issues are also contributed by geopolitical issues, war in Ukraine, and so forth.
Meanwhile, conflict around the globe have added more cost pressures on airlines.
Any conflict is a problem for airlines. In the Middle East, I think, of course, you have the rerouting of aircraft, which then means you need longer, you burn more fuel, so your costs are higher. The other key worry about the Middle East in particular is that any conflict has implications on the oil price. And fuel cost is the highest cost item of airline.
Around the time that Jetstar announced its cessation, reports emerged that another marquee airline was facing difficulties. Garuda, Indonesia's flag carrier, lost 1.2 trillion rupiah, or $76.3 million in the first quarter of 2025. Why are some of Asia's flag carriers struggling?
Selamat malam para penumpang yang terhormat. Selamat datang dalam penerbangan GA 803 menuju Narita, Tokyo.
Ambawati has made hundreds of such announcements in her career. She used to work as a flight attendant at Indonesia's flag carrier Garuda Indonesia. Ambawati joined the airline in 1985 after graduating from senior high school. She's catching up with 3 close friends, also former Garuda flight attendants, at her house in Jakarta. The 61-year-old mother of 2 still keeps the old uniforms and other memorabilia.
Terus nanti di sini ngantongin gula, ngantongin creamer.
Her job took Ambawati to Europe, the United States, Australia, and various destinations in Asia. Ambawati met her future husband, an American, when she was on duty on a flight between Jakarta and Los Angeles. In 1998, she left her job to focus on her family, but looks back fondly at her 13 years with the airline.
Kebanggaan menjadi pramugari Garuda itu kita seragamnya aja sudah cantik, bagus, rapih gitu. Terus kita pesawatnya jet besar, nggak ada pesawat yang pakai kitiran itu apa sih mas namanya wings, nggak. Kita semuanya jet, pesawat jet.
One of Asia's oldest airlines, Garuda Indonesia, was born in 1949. During the country's War of Independence against the Netherlands. Founding President Sukarno named the airline after Garuda, the mythical Hindu bird. In Southeast Asia, flag carriers like Garuda Indonesia, Thai Airways, Malaysia Airlines, and Singapore Airlines are an important part of the country's identity.
Menurut saya, flag carrier is a brand of a country. Jadi istilahnya sebelum orang masuk ke rumah kita, dia akan lihat dulu kita dari luar seperti apa. Itu adalah flag carrier. How we present ourselves. Jadi flag carrier itu mencerminkan kita dari luar.
But Garuda has been facing turbulent times. It had restructured nearly $10 billion of debt in 2022. Then last year, the airline reported a full-year loss. According to a Bloomberg report in May, about 10% of its 77 planes were grounded as Garuda struggled to make maintenance payments. Though the airlines said this was due to supply issues rather than a credit crunch. Still, nearly 16% of Garuda's revenue in 2024 was spent on maintenance and repairs, the highest ratio among flag carriers globally.
I think Garuda missed a big opportunity during the COVID to fully restructure themselves, the debts. and to make a deal with their creditors. So it's unfortunate. Garuda has a lot of legacy issues for many decades, in fact. At one point, I would say during maybe 10 years ago or something, they were showing a realistic chance of a turnaround. But unfortunately, the people who were managing it were changed, and there were some other issues involved there, and it fell back into the previous quagmire.
Garuda declined to be interviewed. Now, Indonesia has come up with a plan to support the airline. In March, the government transferred its 65% stake in Garuda to sovereign wealth fund Danantara. Danantara was set up in February this year, mandated by President Prabowo Subianto. Its raison d'etre is to boost the economy and manage large state-owned assets. Danantara has some $900 billion in assets under management.
Garuda is too big to fail. If Danantara wants to be the center of Indonesia's straight-driven capitalism, and the jewel is a flag carrier airline, then it must save Garuda. But it will be a Herculean challenge for them, but it's a challenge that they must take.
The Sovereign Wealth Fund has extended a $405 million loan to Garuda.
Lenders, creditors prefer to deal with national airlines because they're sovereign. We take Garuda again as an example, and Danantara involved in this, then it will lend credibility, because then the risk of Garuda defaulting or not paying back its dues are lessened.
Garuda's current struggles and possible government rescue mirror some other Southeast Asian flag carriers which had teetered on collapse. A decade ago, Malaysian Airlines was declared technically bankrupt. Its brand had been hurt by two tragic events. In March 2014, flight MH370, with 239 people on board, went missing on its way from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. It remains one of the world's greatest aviation mysteries. A few months later, that July, flight MH17 from Amsterdam to Kuala Lumpur was shot down over eastern Ukraine, killing 298 passengers and crew. Khazanah, Malaysia's sovereign wealth fund, bought out other shareholders, fully nationalizing the airline in 2014. It injected more than 3 billion ringgit, or over $700 million of capital into the airline.
I know they've been under a lot of duress, a lot of stress, a lot of criticism for what people think they should have done, should not have done. But it's always easy in hindsight to blame management for what has gone wrong. But they have turned around to a certain extent, I think, because of stability in management.
Ijam Ismail has been the airline's chief executive officer since 2017. He's also the group managing director of its parent company, Malaysia Aviation Group. He joined Malaysia Airlines as a pilot in 1979. Following the nationalization, Malaysia's flag carrier went through a rebrand.
We have to reinvent ourselves. Firstly is to understand and clearly plant the flag. Who are we? What is Malaysia Airlines? Malaysia Airlines must play a role in nation building. Continuing battling the market with low-cost carriers is actually a losing battle. So Malaysia Airlines decided we should focus on premium travelers. That entails investment.
The pandemic was a blessing in disguise for the airline.
We found it as an opportunity for us to restructure our balance sheet, our finances. And we invited our creditors, our debtors, our partners to look at the contractual obligation with each other. And we were successful to remove about 15 billion of our liability. That eventually overnight makes our balance sheet lean and agile.
Malaysia Airlines' parent company, Malaysia Aviation Group, reported a second consecutive annual profit of 54 million ringgit, or $12.24 million in 2024.
Today, we see that our brand sentiments toward us has risen by 209% in 2024. Customer satisfaction index has risen to about 84%. So we see that moving forward, passenger demand RPK has grown 10% year on year, 2023 to 2024 in the industry. While Malaysia Airlines is a national carrier, Malaysia Airlines cannot continue to be leveraging on the hope of backing from the government. So henceforth, the journey of to be commercially sustainable is paramount.
Another flag carrier was brought low during the pandemic, Thai Airways. Thailand's flag carrier had been in the red for several years before COVID. Then, in 2020, it went into bankruptcy-protected restructuring. Rather than nationalizing the company, the Thai government reduced its stake below 50%. Thai Airways was no longer considered state-owned, which allowed it more flexibility to operate outside government red tape.
They've taken wisely the move to restore confidence back into their fleet. So their fleet used to be a hodgepodge of many different types of aircraft. So they streamlined that. They put in people who understand the business better.
Thailand's flag carrier was relisted on the Thai Stock Exchange in August, after a hiatus of nearly 5 years. Shares soared to a 7-year high, with the company reporting strong profitability for the first half of 2025.
Thai Airways has a big advantage based on its location because it has a huge inbound tourism market. That means their long-haul flights are full with tourists. Plus, Thailand is a reasonably big economy because you do need to fill the business class seats to make a flight profitable.
But there could be turbulence ahead, as cost and supply chain issues continue to add pressure. While Malaysia Airlines was profitable in 2024, its earnings dropped 93% compared to the previous year. Supply chain issues had led the company to cut capacity in 2024, limiting passenger load and ticket sales.
Malaysia Airlines, over the last 2 decades, did not invest itself into new asset, aeroplanes. Because of our aging aircraft and reliability becomes a concern, safety is an issue. Safety is my concern. Safety to the guests and customers that we put on board our aeroplane. So it was a very difficult decision. It was a very tough decision. We grounded our aeroplanes. We removed 18% of capacity to the marketplace.
As a sign of the difficult environment, even one of Asia's most profitable carriers has been hit. Singapore Airlines' net profit in the previous quarter fell 59% year-on-year. The drop was largely due to losses at Air India, in which Singapore Airlines holds a 21.5% stake.
If you want to make money in aviation, you have to be incredibly cost disciplined. So if your first class doesn't sell, your premium economy doesn't sell, you can't afford to have these sections empty in an aircraft. So you can't be soft on unions, you can't be soft on your suppliers.
So, what lies ahead for Garuda?
Garuda is the national airline of Indonesia, and yet I do not see the urgency or the seriousness from the part of the government to really restore or reform the airline to where it should be.
Saya melihat kalau Danantara bisa participate di dalam Garuda secara ownership dan serahkan kepada Garuda sebagai expertnya di dalam operator maskapai flag carrier, dia lebih fokus bagaimana meningkatkan pelayanannya kepada masyarakat sesuai dengan kebutuhannya.
While some flag carriers can dip into government coffers, Asia's low-cost airlines may be on their own as competition ramps up. Leo Budiman is the vice chairman of Transnusa. It's one of the 10 low-cost airlines in Indonesia. Established in 2005, it serves 5 domestic destinations from Jakarta. Internationally, it flies to Kuala Lumpur, Singapore, Perth, Shanghai, and Guangzhou.
Visi dan misi Transnusa adalah kita menyelenggarakan transportation between the island to island, our neighboring country, ya kan, untuk build up the aviation transportation in Indonesia. Sangat penting karena Indonesia adalah satu negara di Asian yang besar, ya kan, dan pulau. Banyak pulau yang sekarang ini hanya dihubungi oleh air transport.
Air travel is not just a luxury in Indonesia. As an archipelago of more than 17,000 islands, it's a necessity to link the population centers. Low-cost airlines play an important role in serving such routes. In Southeast Asia, low-cost airlines have rapidly expanded in the past 25 years, thanks to rising disposable incomes and demand from Chinese travelers. About 2/3 of international seats in the region are on these budget carriers.
Somewhere in the early 70s, Southwest Airlines started a low-cost model in Houston, Texas, and they were very successful because the fares were cheap. Asia Pacific low-cost airlines come later. The main reason is because low-cost airline is a contradiction in terms, because airline business is not low-cost. It's all high cost, it's labor intensive, it's capital intensive, as well as it is highly regulated, so a very costly enterprise.
Like full-service carriers, the LCC segment has also been affected by rising costs. Jetstar Asia's decision to exit shows just how precarious the low-cost carrier sector is.
It's difficult now for low-cost carriers to be low-cost in the sense that cost of money has gone up. Inflation has gone up. So when we speak about low-cost travel, air travel, it's discretionary travel. So discretionary means people will fly when they have extra money in their pockets, when they have jobs.
You have to offer low ticket prices. That's the whole game. And if you can't offer that, then you're not in business anymore for long. And to be able to have low ticket prices, you have to have a very tight ship on operations. You have to have high cost discipline.
And now, Southeast Asia's low-cost carriers face even stiffer competition as Chinese counterparts have expanded into the market.
So if you look at low-cost carriers, by definition, it's very thin margins. And it so happened that many years ago, AirAsia was one of the most profitable, and because their cost was very, very low, in fact, one of the lowest in the world in terms of their ability to maintain their costs. And so they had the first mover advantage. But now we are seeing more LCCs in many parts of Southeast Asia. And so the yields, or the, as you put it, the margins have not been very easy to obtain.
But there's another side to the coin in China's aviation rise. A new player has entered the aircraft market, Commercial Aircraft Corporation of China, or COMAC. Transnusa is the first airline outside China to operate COMAC aircrafts.
Kota-kota yang ramai kita pakai 321 karena okupansinya di sana banyak. Nah, kota-kota yang terlalu sedang dikit kita pakai 320. Kota-kota yang lebih kecil lagi kita pakai COMAC 909.
The twin-engine C909 jet has a maximum capacity of 97 seats. Today, this one is flying from Jakarta to Singkawang in West Kalimantan. The flight takes around 1 hour and 40 minutes. Transnusa uses C909 to serve the city of Manado in North Sulawesi to Sorong in southwest Papua province. For international routes, it links Manado with Guangzhou in China. Flights to Shanghai and Shenzhen start in September.
Kenapa Transnusa memakai COMAC? Pertama adalah spare part availability di Indonesia. Company yang mendukung COMAC di Indonesia. For example, engine. GE Indonesia say, hey, our engine is already get the certification of Indonesian government. Di waktu itu, yang datang ke kita adalah COMAC, di mana semua barang-barang yang kita perlukan untuk mengoperate pesawat itu ada, ready. That's COMAC. They come in the right time actually. Yeah, and then it's a good aircraft.
In Southeast Asia, Lao Airlines has also begun using COMAC planes. Will COMAC shake up the aviation industry, long dominated by Boeing and Airbus, and in doing so, alleviate the supply chain crunch?
I don't see it that way yet. I think there's a long way for COMAC to go before it can rival Airbus or Boeing. But COMAC is not an entity, an aircraft manufacturer that can be pushed aside or can be ignored. What the Chinese are doing is trying to wean themselves off dependency on Western manufacturers. Chinese domestic carriers are doing very well at home. It's a test bed for them. They want to run as many COMAC aircraft domestically before they sell it overseas.
Semakin banyak OEM atau manufacturer ini membuat semakin kompetitif dari sisi penjualan produk. Kalau cuma single produsen, menurut saya itu nggak sehat, karena nggak ada competitive values. Nah, sehingga saya pikir COMAC hadir di sini justru membantu agar Boeing lebih kompetitif, agar Airbus lebih resilience, lebih robust, lebih efisien. Jadi semakin banyak players, menurut saya semakin bagus buat aviasi Indonesia.
However, COMAC jets have yet to be certified by the US Federal Aviation Administration and the European Union Aviation Safety Agency, meaning they cannot be flown in these markets.
It's difficult for any potential buyer to buy it because it's not being certified by these two major regulators. So, but then it doesn't prevent airlines who do not fly to countries that are governed by FAA or EASA, and for example Indonesia. So when the aircraft is being flown within Indonesia, there's no reason for it to be certified by the Europeans or the Americans. So that is an advantage that has been exploited by Transnusa. But Indonesia has taken a great leap of faith in having the COMAC C909 with Transnusa. It has performed well. I mean, nobody's complaining about the safety issues.
While COMAC wrestles for market share, Boeing and Airbus continue to dominate Asia's aviation industry. The region has become the key market for these two aircraft manufacturing titans.
Well, for Boeing, the Asia-Pacific is going to be a major source of growth. If we look 20 years out, the Asia-Pacific as a whole, actually minus China, is going to account for 30 to 40% of all commercial aviation. In terms of Southeast Asia is actually on track to be the fourth largest aviation market in the world.
We see tremendous amount of growth with low-cost carriers because there's such a huge population and GDP growth and need for connectivity. I think there's tremendous potential.
Will the delivery backlog continue to keep airlines from taking off? And what impact will the US tariffs have? Above Tangerang in West Java, pilot cadet Salsabila Pramudita is performing one of the most difficult maneuvers, touch and go. It requires pilots to land and immediately take off again. Accompanied by her instructor, Salsa also performs another maneuver called go around. It's an aborted landing when conditions are not suitable for a safe landing, for example, due to inclement weather or runway obstruction.
Go around itu adalah hal yang kita di sisi kita ketika kita tidak yakin untuk landing. Jadi lebih baik go around itu mindset.
As for the decision on what to do after she graduates, Salsa has some idea.
Dan kalau misal di Indonesia pasti siapa yang nggak ingin daftar di Garuda gitu kan, Garuda Indonesia, karena maskapai yang besar, terus armadanya juga banyak dan terjamin gitu.
Air travel in Asia Pacific is expected to continue its upward momentum this year. But plane delivery still weighs the aviation sector down.
In 2024, there was already a backlog. That was about 15 to 20%. On top of that, we have another 25% backlog in 2025. But more than that is the cost that is going up. When older equipment are being operated, they go to the shop more often. They need more maintenance, and maintenance cannot be conducted if they do not have spare parts and components.
Garuda Maintenance Facility Aero Asia is a subsidiary of Garuda Indonesia, the flag carrier. It's one of Asia's largest and leading aircraft maintenance companies, with customers in Asia, Africa, Europe, and America. Its major airline clients include Cathay Pacific, Qantas, and KLM.
Seperti kalau mobil ada 5.000 jam, 5.000 kilometer dan sebagainya. Kami juga ada A-check, C-check, kemudian ada komponen turun harus overhaul, landing gear overhaul, engine juga harus di-maintain. Itu semuanya adanya di MRO, di bengkel.
GMF Aero Asia handles maintenance, repair, and overhaul of aircraft, as well as routine checks. The company has returned to profit after the pandemic. But the war in Ukraine and sanctions on Russian exports of titanium, an important metal in plane manufacturing, continue to cause disruption.
Many of the parts that go into making of an aircraft, parts and components or engine, are produced and sourced from many markets across the globe. Doesn't mean that you're looking at Boeing aircraft, all the Boeing parts are made in America. No, they're coming from dozens of other markets.
Kemudian ditambah dengan masalah perang kan, perang raw material susah, akhirnya spare part terlambat sampai sekarang. Itu masih sampai sekarang. Ada beberapa part itu yang mungkin akan janjinya dari vendor, dari manufaktur akan pulih di tahun 2026. Tapi dengan melihat situasi seperti ini agak sulit. Jadi pada akhirnya kejar-kejaran, Pak. Nah itu yang membuat banyak pesawat secara airframe-nya sudah selesai, tinggal terbang, tapi engine-nya belum siap. Itu juga yang terjadi di Indonesia, mayoritas pesawat yang grounded itu karena engine.
And now, the tariffs imposed by US President Donald Trump could cause further disarray. The Chinese-made COMAC planes that Trans-Nusa operates is an example of the global nature of aircraft manufacturing.
Itu adalah pesawat yang di-assembly di China dengan spare part yang dari Amerika dan Eropa. Jadi sekarang carilah pesawat yang lebih bisa menjamin, ya kan, kayak engine-nya, engine replacement, landing gear.
So tariffs undermine all these things because free trade is very important for globalization and setting up of these supply chains. So tariffs actually hit at the core of these supply chains, increase supplier costs, and also result in less of these things being imported to the important markets of the world.
The tariff saga took an interesting twist after Indonesia and US reached a trade deal in July. Indonesia goods entering the United States will face a 19% tariff, below the 32% level that Trump had earlier threatened. In return, Indonesia will buy billions of dollars of American products, including 50 Boeing planes.
Semua sudah kita hitung, semua kita berunding, kita juga memikirkan. Yang penting bagi saya adalah rakyat saya. Yang penting saya harus lindungi pekerja-pekerja kita.
But with Boeing's order backlog, whether the purchase will ultimately materialize is questionable.
The point is not about whether the Boeing plane transaction is successful or not. The point is about these two men want to meet their goals, their different goals, and this transaction is only part of the process. And for Prabowo, the goal is to make sure that there is some sort of balance. He needs to show China that he can lean on the US, that China is not a source for everything that Indonesia needs, that he can switch to the US when he must do that, when China thinks that Indonesia already is following China's tail.
Timely plane delivery is important for Asian airlines to weather the turbulence ahead. Malaysia Airlines is aiming to refresh part of its fleet with newer and larger craft. It aims to operate a narrow-body fleet of 55 new-generation Boeing 737 aircraft by 2030. The airline has already received 14 planes. Malaysia Airlines is also expecting 20 A330 neo wide-body jets by 2028, with another 20 on order. It has begun receiving deliveries of this new Airbus aircraft.
Where should Malaysia Airlines be good at? In our view, we should be good at in Asia Pacific. And with congestion at airports, slots and so forth, rather than flying 2-3 times a day, maybe you just send one big aeroplane. Henceforth, that's where the 330 neo come into play. And hopefully by 2029, Malaysia Airlines will have a brand new fleet with an average age of about 5 years old or less.
However, if airlines are forced to continue grounding planes, they will miss out on the growth opportunity. With travel demand outstripping supply, the price of your holiday now costs more than pre-pandemic times.
I mean, hotel prices have pulled ahead since COVID. So you can see overall travel has become more expensive thanks to growth, thanks to a bit of limited capacity. That means if you're an airline that has reasonably new and well-maintained aircraft, you're benefiting from this because travel demand is up, capacity cannot keep pace, and therefore ticket prices are reasonably hard, right? So they have pricing power here. So if you have the parts and you have the aircraft, you are in business.
So, while Asia's aviation sector has rebounded from the pandemic, the narrowing profits mean it may not be clear skies ahead.
Air travel is discretionary travel. And so the problem now we're looking at is the instability around the world, the likelihood that people are going to be out of jobs, and possibility of more geopolitical upheavals. And those add up to making discretionary travel more unrealistic in today's terms. But a wide-scale conflict like what could develop if things go out of control in the Middle East or in Ukraine, which doesn't seem to be under control, then all bets are off. So we have to just play it by ear and hope for the best.
Away from the turbulence in the aviation sector, Cadet Salsabila is done for the day. For now, she looks for the silver lining in the clouds.
Setelah COVID, perlahan-lahan bisa kembali lagi bangkit dan bisa pilot-pilot yang mungkin masih belum kerja, mungkin bisa terjaring di situ. Saya tuh sebenarnya pinginnya kayak terbang yang tantangannya lebih gede tuh kayak di pegunungan gitu. Karena kan kalau misal itu harus punya kecakapan yang beda, terus kayak tantangannya beda, lalu dari runway-nya aja udah beda kan. Nah, terus kayak kita lihat obstacle-nya ada gunung, kanan gunung, kiri gunung, terus kita, jadi mungkin kalau misal saya nggak sabar, kalau misal saya diberi kesempatan, saya pengen sih nyoba di situ sih.